something that could make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck, I'ma keep chasing. I got all this potential that's deep inside of me.
What's going on, everybody? How's it going? We have a special episode planned today, but anyways, thank you again for joining me for another BG Cast live podcast. Everybody, I want to thank all of the new subscribers and followers over on Rumble and YouTube. I have really been appreciating all of the love I've been getting lately. Man, I am so grateful. I can't tell you how nice it is to see the BG Cast family growing and expanding. Real quick, before we get to this awesome panel with my two amazing guests, the number one thing I want to just bring up real quick for everybody, I brought it up on the show on Wednesday. My Liberty on the Rocks talk is getting closer and closer, everybody. So if you are in the Denver area and you want to come meet me and you want to come hear me talk, it will be called BG Cast, The Path to Victory. I'm hoping to try and bring a little bit more common sense, a little bit more compassion, and a little bit more empathy to everything that's going on right now. But yeah, if you want to head on over to my X profile, my Facebook profile, I have the information pinned at the top. And if you guys want to come hang out, it's a great time. I mean, there will be drinks, there will be beverages, there will be, some snacks, and we're all planning to get dinner afterwards. So if you'd like to join us, that would be awesome. But nonetheless, let's get to it, guys. It's another FKN panel. And we have a very interesting topic we're all going to be breaking down today. It's going to be really cool. So I have decided to call this episode Fight and Smite the Parasites, because we do not want parasites. And, it's been coming out in the open that parasites are the cause of not only a lot of the physical illnesses and ailments that we have nowadays, but they can also be the cause of a lot of the energetic issues that we also have as well. And we'll be breaking that down. So first, I want to bring to the stage Miss Karen Holton TV. You guys remember her from the show. How's it going, Karen?
It's going good, Stephen. Thanks for having me back. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. And we have the commander-in-chief of FKN himself in the house, guys. Let me welcome Chris Mathieu to the stage. What is up, Chris? Aaron, why don't you tell everybody about your book? We had you on the show, a few weeks back to discuss it. And why don't you give everybody a little bit of a show there? That's pretty awesome.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I enjoyed being on your show and talking about it. So the book is called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, and it's about my personal real-life contact with transdimensional beings. And as things progress in the UFO, UAP, non-human intelligence arena, they're starting to realize more and more that these beings are transdimensional. Now, my experience is a little bit out there, but it's a good experience. It taught me a lot, and I basically take the reader along with me into my adventure so they can get an idea of what I experienced. And yeah, so that's basically my book. It's available at Amazon worldwide for anyone who's interested in picking it up.
That's awesome, Karen. Definitely give her a how you sounding, Chris?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Much better.
I just realized every time I try and use StreamYard with Firefox, that shit happens. So figured something out tonight. All right,
man. Real quick, since we had Karen talk about her book just for a little bit, Chris, while you were gone, why don't you tell everybody about the Forbidden Documentary Part 2 real fast?
Yes, sir. Forbidden Documentary Doors of Perception just dropped. It's available for you to rent or download from our OTT site. I'll have links for you guys to put out there if in your description so everyone can easily access it. It's on our website as well. And it's only $3 to rent it. It's $7 to buy it. And we're hoping to have it on all the streaming platforms by like May or June. So go check that out. We're excited about how everything turned out and can't wait for all you guys to check it out and share it.
Absolutely, man. You both have been killing it. You guys, you got a book out. We got part 2 of a documentary out. I'll be joining you guys shortly with my life talks I'm trying to bring to the table. And
Wonderful.
no, you guys are awesome, man. You guys are killing it. I can't say enough good things about it. But nonetheless, let's get into this, guys. So parasites, right? Parasites have been coming up in our community a lot lately. They've been the talk of the town. There's been a lot of revelations starting to kind of come to the surface that parasites are actually the cause of quite a few, if not most, of the illnesses and the ailments that we experience as human beings. But one of the other things I think we're going to have to touch on today too, for sure, is how they also have an energetic component to them as well. I know Chris has brought up on my show at least a couple times in the past that, that there's an as above, so below concept with these parasites. While we might have a physical thing inside of us, there can also be an energetic component as well. So let's kind of start off with Karen real quick. Karen, let's hear about your experience with parasites a little bit. Have you had an experience with them? And what kind of issues did they end up causing you over on the long run? Not just on a physical level, but on a energetic and emotional level as well.
Well, it's really interesting, guys, really interesting. So I've been experimenting with my diet for a number of years. And what I discovered when I went off of basically carbs, sugars, refined starches, all of that stuff, and just went on a protein-based diet. I needed to do that for a whole bunch of reasons. And I was finding that after about 6 months, I was having all these dreams about eating pastries and cakes and rich desserts. And I thought, what the heck is going on here, right? Because I didn't want to eat those things, like I'm really serious about trying to get my health in order. And then I came across sort of a mini documentary, and they were saying that, well, first of all, we have more so-called critters in our digestive tract than we have cells in our body. We have billions of these things. Some are good, some are not so good, and they can get out of balance really easy. They have a collective consciousness, the little bastards, pardon my language. So what happens is when I changed my diet and they were dying off, the bad ones were dying off, they want to survive. And they were actually causing me to have cravings for the food they needed me to eat for them to survive. And that was spilling out into my dream state. And I kept having these recurring dreams of eating all these cakes and pastries and all this stuff. And it wasn't me. And I just thought that was super interesting. And it took over a year really to clear them out. Of course, since then I've done an herbal parasite cleanse again, because not only are they like bugs, but there's also yeast and fungus and candida yeast and stuff that can also invade your body as a species as well. So that's sort of my physical experience with parasites.
Interesting, man. That would be so strange, like, all of a sudden to have dreams of you like gorging on like this buffet of like cakes and like sweets. And I would be asking myself the same question, because I eat healthy also. I'd be like, man, like, what's going on here? But that's a very interesting, we're going to have to dive into how they have a collective consciousness. But Chris, let's hop to you next, man. Have you had any of the experiences with these parasites and also energetic parasites as well, if you've had any kind of experiences with those? And did they have any kind of crossover in your life where they, was it kind of an as above, so below thing, or just one or the other? Your mic, my friend.
There we go. There I am. So I thought there was a bit of a crossover at times, although I couldn't pinpoint any times in my life where I knowingly had physical parasites, although I'm sure I do, because I believe that everyone probably does, based on everything that we're subjected to in our surroundings, the food we eat, even frequency based. I believe I've heard that certain frequencies can cause conditions in our body to where these parasites can just grow in there, and not so good ones either. So I'm pretty sure we all have levels of parasites. My wife and I just did a round of the ivermectin and fenbendazole. We're going to see how that goes, see how we feel after that. Jen said she's already feeling a lot better. So there's that. Although I know that I had many spiritual, energetic parasites that I had to do a lot of work to get rid of. And I'm sure that started a long time ago when I changed my diet and stopped eating as much crap food, and like Karen was saying, sugar all the time. And I had the same thing when I started to cut down on sugar. I would dream more about sugar and things like that. So it progressed as I got deeper into my spiritual awareness. And then once I started my psychedelic journey, that's when I really dove into those deep subconscious energetic parasites that were not in the sense that most people really think of. They're more of hindering growth. They affect us emotionally, mentally, and they can affect us physically, because we're not having the right levels of energy, and our emotions can affect all those things as well. So I did a lot of work through the meditation and psychedelic experiences to pinpoint some of those energetic parasites. And the one most profound experience I had with those particular type of energetic parasites, is I knew that there was something in my past that was causing me to have a lot of doubts about myself, that was preventing me in moving forward in a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And I could really never pinpoint what it was until this one experience, where I basically had to go back. I went back in time essentially, and I asked the mushrooms to show me where this experience stemmed from. And it showed me, and it was a long time ago. I was like, oh God, I had to be about 4 or 5 years old. And my parents had taken me to this camp off of the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast of Louisiana. And it was in the middle of nowhere. It was owned by a pretty wealthy, prominent orthodontist who owned a few other businesses. And I'm not sure what all he was involved in. But anyway, what I remember about this is not much, but I do remember. And I remembered more as I was reliving the memory through the psychedelic experience, that I walked into a bedroom in this place, in this camp in the middle of nowhere, sitting on pylons in the ocean. And I found this little round glass. It looked like a snow globe kind of, but I swear it had a skull in it. And when you turn the skull a certain direction, you could see, and it looked to me, with my 4-year-old eyes, it looked to me like there was a living snake in there, and it was moving around and slithering. And I'm like, what the hell? How is this possible? I just, the memories, the regression that I was going through showed me what happened. And it showed me that as a child, I kind of like got mesmerized by this thing. And apparently I spent hours just staring at it, and it had a very dark energy attached to it, a very negative force. Who knows what this guy was into, at this orthodontist that we went to stay with. But apparently there was a negative, if you want to call it, demonic force that was attached to this object, and it inhabited me, and it was with me since my childhood. And it just caused a lot of, I'd say, lack of confidence in much of my teenage and childhood and through my 20s. And even recently, I worked through a lot of it, but there were still some things that were holding me back in my life. And it was due to this thing. And when I realized what happened, I intuitively knew that I had to go back in my consciousness and shield myself from this event. So I had my inner child take this little thing that I found and smash it on the ground and then be done with it. And after that, I just felt a release, this negative thing. It felt like a snake uncoiling from some of my lower chakra system and then exiting through my belly button. And it was then I felt amazing. I felt incredible. It was a very profound experience. But to me, that's probably what I'd consider an energetic parasite.
I'm with you, man. And man, that is a real profound experience. That's great that you were kind of able to, work with the mushrooms and have them kind of guide you towards that point in your life where you could kind of just dial in on exactly what it was and like heal yourself, man. I think that's pretty awesome, dude. That's definitely cool. I've had kind of my own bout with both of them, the energetic ones being more prominent than the physical ones. A lot of people don't understand that drug addiction can also be, an energetic parasite. And that's something that I struggled with very much. And kind of where that kind of came into play was, I talk about it a lot. I had a very, very messed up life while I was growing up. Not the most messed up around, probably. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there was people who had it worse than me. But I had a very messed up life. I had a lot of wrong done to me. And there were times where I felt helpless. I felt weak. I did not feel like I could help myself out of certain things, certain situations. And what it ended up doing was causing this darkness within me. And I know for sure that this darkness attracted things. And that is where a lot of the drug addiction in my life began. And how I ended up getting rid of those energetic parasites, well, I do thank the entheogenic plants. I do thank psilocybin mushrooms. I thank DMT, as all playing a part in that healing process. Also my own. But, really the diving in and really stopping all of it and, putting the mental willpower that I had within me at that point. I had, been just started on my spiritual evolution. The fact that something I had felt innately in me since I was a child, ever since as far back as I can remember, I found out that there was a truth to that. I was immediately 200% in. Everything else was out the window at that point. And what's really interesting, because like you guys were talking about the dreams, well, when I was stopping the drugs, I would have dreams of using drugs. Like, yes, I would have dreams of doing cocaine. I would have dreams of doing opiates, different things like that. And, and that's why to hear about both of y'all's stories when it comes to, the cakes and all of that, when you guys are trying to stop eating, well, this can happen on other fronts too. Like
I had the same thing in my early 20s, teenage years, when I was heavily into drugs. I had the same drug dreams too, man.
Dude, that is so wild, man. It's crazy how they do. It's like almost like Karen was saying, there's like a collective consciousness among these entities of some kind. And when they know that you're like starving them, they're gonna infiltrate you, especially in the astral, and they're gonna be like, yeah, man, like, here, look at all this cocaine you have in the astral. Like, this is great, right? Like, this is awesome. And I'm like, listen, I'm not Zelensky here. Okay, like I'm good to go. I don't want any more of this. All right, but nonetheless, that's how I got rid of my energetic parasites. I started cleanly eating around the time I was 20 years old. Of course, what I thought was eating clean at that time had evolved throughout the years. Like, I understood that some of the stuff I thought was clean was actually not. And, there was a little bit of a learning curve there and an educational process. But, as I got more and more and I started to eat cleaner and cleaner, that's when I started to notice other things too. Like, I would have days like, And I, would even go get like my testosterone levels checked, my blood. They would be like, everything's fine. Like, every time I would go, and I would be like, weird. Why do I feel so worn out? Why do I feel so tired? And like, why do I feel like this fog in my head? I'm eating clean. I'm working out. Like I'm meditating. And then I kind of started to put two and two together. And, I kind of understood that the medical industrial complex is not going to be 100% honest with me about what's going on. So I kind of did the research, and then I'll talk about the cleanse I did, a little bit later on. But, one thing I want to bring up to the both of you, because like Chris brought this up, it was a great thing he said, how certain frequencies can attract these things. So one of the biggest things that's been kind of surfacing in our community a little bit right now is that the victim mentality is actually what attracts not just physical parasites, but also energetic parasites. So we'll start off with Karen. Have you heard something like this, or have you ever experienced something like this with somebody? Because this to me kind of makes sense, because when you trap yourself in the victim mentality, you're trapping yourself. You're not taking that accountability and trapping yourself on a lower frequency.
Totally. Well, I had, like you, Stephen, I had a lot of bad things happen to me when I was young, and I'm sure other people had it worse. And that's one thing I tell myself. I comfort myself by going, Karen, oh my God, it could have been so much worse. It was almost like I had an inoculation in these experiences rather than having to go all the way with them. But I had overwhelming bouts of sadness, and sadness and grieving are very low in the frequency dimension. They really lower your frequency. And so what I had was something. It was almost like when I would get really sad, and part of the reason I just want to qualify why I would get so sad is because I can see clearly how humans can be doing it differently. We can be doing so much better. We can have such a we live on a paradise planet. We live on a water world. We have everything in abundance. If we could just show a little love to each other, it could be so different. But anyway, I'd get into these bouts of sadness. And then it was like something, I couldn't see it, but it was like something would start riding on me or attach to me and started feeding on me. And it wanted me to go even deeper into sadness and despair. And, I learned from books and podcasts and other things, that these could be what they call archons, or energetic parasites. So I started challenging them, and I felt foolish doing it, but I did it anyway. And I would just yell at them out loud using my voice, because sometimes anger can be a very good tool for shifting energies. And so I would get really angry, and I would just say, I know you're there. I know you're feeding off me, and you have to F off. You have to leave my realm. This is my realm. I'm mistress of my domain, and I banish you. Gone, be gone, or whatever it would take. And I'd feel a lot better afterwards. And initially, I had to do it fairly often, because I had, I guess, made myself, quite tasty to them. But that is very closely tied into what you were saying, Stephen, about the victim mentality. Because when we sink into the victim mentality, I think we're ripe for the picking of these different energetic forces to start feeding on us. Because what happens is we start feeling despair, depression, anxiety, resentment, all of those negative things. And there's charts, you can Google it, guys, where it has what frequencies are all the different emotions are actually frequencies, and what those frequencies are. And like I said, anger for me was a wonderful tool. I love anger because anger gives me energy, and I can shift out of or pivot out of. And then I start, getting, it's kind of like the stages of grieving. Eventually you get to acceptance and you start to climb the ladder towards joy and love and all those other good things, right? And even in everybody's everyday life as human beings, we will have days where we will be feeling down, and we can use anger, either anger at these unseen forces that might be feeding off of us, or even just anger that, well, that's bullshit and I'm not participating in it, and I'm going to do my own thing and whatever, and pivot and start to get hopeful. And when we start to get hopeful, it's easier to have faith and, all those positive things that raise our frequency. Then once I got in the habit of raising my frequency, I just stopped encountering these dark forces that were feeding off of me. And I realized I was being a victim by doing that. But then also in this whole process, I started realizing I really am the mistress of my own domain. I don't have to be, flailing away in victimhood. That's bullshit. The world is my oyster. I have amazing, endless possibilities. And as I began to study more about quantum physics, I started to realize that the waveforms will collapse in the form that I'm seeing. So why not see positive outcomes? Anyway, I guess I'm rambling, but I just wanted to say that's how I see it.
No worries, Karen. No worries. No, that we are, we were ultimately in control of our own energy, our own emotions. I like kind of what you brought up about anger too, because I think sorry, did not mean to say that. Anger gets a negative connotation when it comes to certain things, because when we look at our spiritual community, we focus on a lot of the positivity, we focus on a lot of the love and light, and that's all fine and dandy, but we can't, negate anger. We can't ignore it. It can be a useful tool if it's used properly. And it's about understanding it. It's about feeling it. It's about utilizing it. I think where a lot of people kind of mess up on that is where they hang on to it. You know what I mean? And they keep it there with them. So what about you, Chris? I know we kind of see a lot of victim mentality sometimes in our community. I mean, have you seen anybody or experienced somebody who potentially has had a negative attachment or could potentially have one due to a victim mentality or being in those lower frequencies?
I'm sure I have. I'm sure there's plenty of people that I've come across in my life. I mean, I shared with everyone the story about my ex-girlfriend who had the quote unquote reptilian energy. That's a perfect example of someone in my life, but I really surround myself with very high vibrational people now. And they don't seem to come my way anymore. And to give you a little background, and it relates to the energetic parasite that I told you a story about earlier that was really hindering my confidence in almost every aspect of my life. In my early years, it would be my jobs and my relationships. And the relationship thing went on until, just a few years ago. But, I was never have enough confidence to aim high in any kind of work I was doing. I had all these talents and skills that I was just burying because I didn't feel like I was good enough to start utilizing those. And that was for a long time in my life until I was able to around 2012, and I started to wake up. But they still had the relationship things. I went through 2 horrible abusive marriages because I didn't think I deserved any better than, the women that I was picking in my lives. So until I was able to heal all that, get rid of that spiritual parasite, and really just realize that I was worth more, I deserve more in my life, and I didn't have to settle for shitty relationships anymore. And then, that was another level that deflected these negative energetic intelligences, energies, parasites, whatever you want to call them. But something else I wanted to say before I have to head out here in a few minutes is that whenever I was going through my early spiritual journey and I had just started meditating and using psychedelics, I felt that there, looking back, I could tell that I felt that there was a lot of danger in what I was doing, what I was interacting with. Although I had made contact with my guides in my early experiences, I would go in there overconfident at times, and I would probably interact with intelligences and energies that I was not supposed to, and I was scolded by my guides many times for doing so. And a great example of one of these experiences in my early journeys is my guides were always with me. They were always there to prevent me from ultimately jumping off the cliff when it came to interacting with something super dangerous. But at times they'd let me do it a little just to see if I'd catch on and be able to realize and maybe fend them off for myself, which I eventually learned some great techniques for doing all of that. But this was in the early stages. And I came across this entity that claimed to be God, and it presented itself as this old female in a hood, and she was all frail, and she looked, just like a grandmother, and she had that grandmotherly energy that she presented herself. And I was thinking, this is kind of weird. I don't know, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna initiate a conversation with this thing. And it proceeded to try and convince me that it was God because of all these reasons, because men couldn't give birth, and it's only women that can bring life to this. And she was going on and on. And I just started to become aware of what I was interacting. I started to see through the mask, and it was a massive spider with an old lady head, and it was trying to weave a web around my brain. And immediately I rebuked the thing, and it, scattered off. And my guides were immediately like, yeah, you see, that's what we're talking about. So
Wow.
those kind of things can be very dangerous, I think, for people who are exploring some of these things. Even with meditation, you come across something, an intelligence that wants to communicate with you. You have to be super high vibing to deflect a lot of that stuff. If you have any type of residual energies or negativity, or you're in a bad state of mind that day, it could attract some of these nasties. And, to the extent that you interact with them, could cause some detrimental damage to your psyche. And, you got to do a lot more healing to get rid of that stuff. So there is some cautions I would tell people who are interacting with this stuff. And the last thing I want to say is that our systems are parasitic. Religion is parasitic. Politics is parasitic. Our food is everything that we are surrounded with that the Matrix is presenting to us is parasitic. So there's a lot of navigating we have to do in this reality, and it becomes difficult. But once you start and you keep going, it becomes easier, and it becomes easier to become aware of how to bob and weave through some of this stuff, and what not to do, what not to put in your body, what not to interact with, and how to get yourself into a better state of emotions and a better state of mind in general, so that you can easier navigate through the madness. But unfortunately, guys, I got to take off for the evening. I have a little meeting I got to get to, but thank you so much for doing this again, and have a wonderful evening, guys. I'll talk to you again soon.
See you, Chris. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank y'all.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors. Check out my new book available from Amazon bookstores worldwide and read the stunning details about ET diversity and culture, along with their advanced ways of living and expressing spirituality, which is in no way like anything imagined here on Earth. Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors introduces you to many different ET beings, the healing pods, the interior of the big ship, my orientation process, cultural events, and off-world mating practices. When I tucked myself into bed for the night back in 2014, I had no idea that I would be transported to the big ship, meet many different extraterrestrial races of beings, become well acquainted with their culture, and visit numerous interesting worlds. While away, I learned a great deal about the big ship, intergalactic and transdimensional travel, intergalactic planetary research, and the various options for resettlement. My true life adventures continued night after night, and I had never experienced anything like this before. The first few times that I awoke back at home, I convinced myself that it had all been some kind of a fantastic dream. But while away, I was eating, sleeping, learning, and visiting, all the while experiencing what I perceived as days, weeks, and months. I am so happy to present you with my true nonfiction account of my weird little life and the more important messages from beyond our realm that I have been tasked to share with all of you. It is my hope and sincere desire that I will inspire you to acknowledge your own transdimensional abilities and experiences so that together we can become the change we wish to see in our world. Paperback and Kindle editions are now available at all Amazon bookstores. Go to the Amazon website, select the bookstore or Kindle store, and enter Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors by Karen Holton. The Audible version is coming out soon.
Yeah, no. So picking up where Chris left off, absolutely. I've had experiences with those parasitic entities as well. And one thing I kind of want to bring to light here is I think there are parasitic energies that are affecting our conscious collective too at this point in time. Real quick, I'll kind of touch off of what Chris was saying. But yes, I've had these experiences as well where I would interact with these entities who were trying to almost like put a mirage over themselves and present themselves as more beneficial. Although I had a little bit of more of a learning curve than Chris did, unfortunately, because I had an interaction with these entities that I thought were beneficial. And they told me a whole bunch of things and that I needed to do and people I needed to connect with and all of this stuff. And, of course, at that time I was very young and I was naive. I wanted so bad to interact with something, a different form of life. In fact, it had always been my dream since I was a child. I always wanted to either talk to an extraterrestrial, an interdimensional being, something like that. So when it started happening and it started kind of coming to the surface of my life, like I was like ecstatic. And like the first few experiences were like, really great. Like, don't get me wrong. But then I ran into these batch of entities. And like I said, they told me, you need to do this with this person, talk to this person, like a whole bunch of different information. And of course I was so, astonished and enamored that, wow, like these interdimensional entities are coming to talk with me. This is great. So I started to follow a lot of what they said. And honestly, following a lot of what they said caused some damage in my life at that point. And I kind of started to understand a little bit after some of the damage had been done. Luckily, none of it was irreversible damage. But I started to kind of become hip to what was going on. And I was like, all right, I think I'm good on entities for a little bit. I think I'm going to just clear myself and, work with my higher self and the divine only. And that's it. I don't need to be, messing around with things that I'm not 100% sure of at that point in time. But then, luckily, through me having that discernment move, my real watchers, my real friends, and from the other side ended up showing up. And how I knew that they were legitimate, they let me know when I'm messing up. They do. They will tell me what I'm doing wrong. They will, of course, they're honest with me. When it comes to me doing good. But if I messed up on something, like I had an experience with them not too long ago where I kind of failed a test and they were like, man, like, what the hell? Like, kind of like almost like, you know better than this. Like, you should not fail that. And so that's kind of what happened with me in that instance as well. But let's kind of talk about collective parasites for a second, Karen. I think Chris brought up a very good point. We have these parasitic systems that thrive off of our focus, our engagement, our energy. And I do feel like in a lot of ways that some of these energetic parasitic egregores, we'll call them, actually have infiltrated our conscious collective. I mean, we were having this conversation on our show. We see in our community, sometimes people can be the worst to each other. And you've experienced that. I've experienced that. I mean, do you think it's possible because of the mix and the escalation of the energies and all of these emotions running high right now? Do you think that some of these parasitic egregores have definitely infected our community?
Yep, I do. And I'll tell you, I think part of the problem is people, for whatever reason, I'm not judging them, but for whatever reason, people shy away from introspection and shadow work. And they will do anything to distract themselves from taking a look at who they really are and what they're really about. And I think in their effort to deny that part of them, because let's face it, I mean, I've done a ton of shadow work. I continue to do it. I hate it. It's dirty. It's not stuff I want to look at. I want to pretend I'm all love and light all the time. But the truth of the matter is, no matter how hard I try to be love and light all the time, sometimes I can be a shitty human being or just think shitty thoughts or maybe not even treat myself very well. And, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to other people to say I'm better or worse. I'm just saying that I seriously strive to evolve and to develop and to be the best human I can be while I'm here. But, a lot of people spend no time in introspection, no time ever thinking about themselves or things they've done or how they could do their lives differently. And I think that leaves them wide open to become puppets. And then there's the concept of the is it NCPs, the
NPCs, non-player
yeah,
characters.
yes, there's the whole concept of that I think that they can, and I've met a few, so I actually believe that's a real thing. Like, I would never want to judge someone and put that label on them, but I've met some and I'm going, holy smokes. Just like in a video game, and you can pick up that video game, you can play it 100 times, you can put it away for 5 years, 10 years, and pick it up again. And when you walk up to that character, it's going to say the exact same phrase that it said 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, it's really kind of scary, Stephen. And I think they also can be used as vessels or something to, I think there's a lot of nefarious stuff. And I just want to say one more quick thing, and that is that as human beings, the amount of the visual light spectrum that we're able to register, and our eyes don't actually see, they just take in the data, our brains create a holographic image of what we're perceiving. Same is true for the auditory spectrum and the electromagnetic, which gives us a sense of touch. It's so narrow. It would be foolish to think there's nothing else out there. And I'm not saying it's all wicked and bad, but I'm sure it's a mix. And and I do believe people are being controlled. And I'll just give you as an example. I'm not trying to get on a political fence here, but
No, go right ahead. You're all good. Yeah.
Take Trump, Trump, what do they call it? Trump,
derangement syndrome.
That's a mind virus. Holy shit, that's a mind virus that makes no sense. A lot of these woke philosophies, if these people they won't even consider the other side of the fence, or that maybe they're having a huge mass hallucination or a misunderstanding. I'm not trying to pinpoint people, but I'm just using, these are examples. And so what's happening is these people, you can't even reason with them. It's like they have a mind virus. It's like they have a parasite eating away at their intelligence. And it's kind of scary, Stephen.
I agree with you 100%. I think, when we talk about parasite, I mean, we have so many different layers to what that exactly is. It can definitely be a mind virus, 100%. I've seen people. I actually had a guy on the show. I'm not going to name his name. Don't get me wrong. I still have respect for him because he was one of the only people on the left who decided to come on my show and sit down and talk with me. So for that, he has my respect. Don't get me wrong, but he broke out in tears over Trump derangement syndrome, and I was like, And for me, like, I'm not a calloused person. Like, if somebody's breaking out in tears in front of me because something happened to them, like legitimately, or, somebody passed away or something happened to like a family member, their pet, like I can resonate so deeply with all of that, as I've had that kind of happen to me, and I would be there for them. Like, like I would be there as support. I would be there to help them, and show them how to help themselves, like, along the way. But, when I have somebody crying on my show because of Trump, I'm like, I have to kind of like take a step back and be like, are you listening to yourself right now? Are you really listening to yourself? Because you're crying over this thing that ultimately, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, you have control over your life, don't you? Like, you have control over, your outcomes. And like, that's the thing, I think a lot of people adapt. That's the best way I can describe it. But nonetheless, I'll get back to I'll digress a little bit into what we were saying, but you're absolutely right. I do think Trump derangement syndrome is a parasite, most certainly. But no, yes, I think our conscious collective does indeed have its share of parasitic egregores. I think what has happened to a lot of this, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, social media definitely brings out the worst in people. And it does, unfortunately. And, people like you and I, we have to use it, to help share our message and spread our word. But what we have the rise of, one thing I'm kind of like meh about, are these starseed influencers, right? Like, a lot of it almost seems like the spiritual community has really dived in and embraced the ego, as opposed to, understanding that this is a team effort here. We're all the ground crew, all of us on the awakening ground crew at this moment in time. And I think, this ego getting involved, and, the fact that I do believe we have been infiltrated in ways, has opened us up to these energetic parasitic egregores. And that's one of the biggest things, man. I see a lot of these love and light people. I mean, in all reality, they're not truly about love and light. They're about themselves. They're about the ego. They're about being right. And I mean, we look at how, the word parasite can just be so multifaceted. I do think that there's a mind virus existing, in our community as well. And I mean, there's a few of them. I mean, even the whole, everything going on with the transgender thing. Do you think that is potentially a mind virus in and of itself as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are people who truly, truly feel that they are not what their genetics say. And I'm not judging them. Generally, they tread softly, and I really feel for them. But this is like 1% of the population. Now, for there to be this huge movement promoting it, and people, well, of course, a lot of people are just discontent with their lives, so they want to create some kind of an identity where they feel special, right? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
part of it. Then again, that gets into what you're talking about the ego again, right? But yeah, absolutely. I think that's another mind virus. So yeah, it's unbelievable. And the first thing that gives it away is a lack of love, a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy, and a lack of understanding. There isn't any of that. In fact, they will beat you to death with their placards and their signs. It's horrible. I don't want to live in that kind of world. I refuse to live in that kind of world, Stephen.
I 100% agree with you. And like, I'm kind of in the same camp as you. I know that there's that 1% that, and, as a believer in true freedom, and I mean, that's the thing I think which separates me from a lot of people, is, if you're a consenting adult, right? And this is something that you want to make the choice of doing. I might not agree with it, but I'm not going to tell you that I don't think you should have the freedom to do it. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where I stand on it at that point. To me, the divine doesn't make those kind of mistakes. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, the divine or source is like, oh crap, dude, I put a female soul in a male body. Send it out anyways. Let it out of the assembly line. We got a lot to pump out here, but and to me, those mistakes don't exist. Of course, like, yes, I mean, that's my personal belief. That's my personal spiritual belief. Don't get me wrong. But I think the promotion of it, the fact that it's now starting to reach our children, and it's starting to me, that's the ultimate parasitic energy thing right there, trying to mess with children. And that's the part of me that that definitely says a cosmic no when it comes to all of this going down. But we look at a lot of these other things too. We have Trump deranged syndrome. We have the promotion of the this transgender, like it being widely broadcasted. I think another mind virus, honestly, and you'll probably agree with me on this, and this is another parasite that's kind of infected our collective, is having too much trust and faith in government. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So I'll let you go real quick, but I want to say, like, I've literally seen people. I used to work with a guy, who would literally, I looked at him and I said, all right, so literally, what if your government decided to take a certain group of people, demonize them, and put them in a camp or a prison camp of some kind? And what if the definition of these kind of people started to get broader and expand, and it just happened to start to include you? I mean, how would you feel about that? And he verbatim told me I would trust my government not to do that.
Yeah.
And but what do you think about that? Do you think that this complete trust, blind trust and faith in anything government is a mind virus and a parasite in and of itself?
Oh, absolutely. We really saw it in 2020 here in Canada. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't travel. And if you were one of the filthy, dirty people that dared to refuse the medical intervention, you deserved to die. Like, it was unbelievable, absolutely crazy. And, I actually see government as being kind of a mirror image or the other side of the coin to religion. So there's another thing, only our religion speaks the truth. Only our religion worships God the right way, not like those filthy Protestants across the street or whatever, could be any of the Abrahamic or even other religions. Like, it's unbelievable what people will use to not think for themselves. And again, it goes into people do not want to do introspection. It's much easier to just give your blind faith to some authority and do everything you're told. But I don't know, to me, that's missing the point. And that shows a distinct lack of maturity. I mean, when we're children, our parents told us what was right, what was wrong, how to behave, how to do things. But at some age, we started to think for ourselves, right? But oh my God, you can't do that because that's called chaos and anarchy. People don't even understand what anarchy means. Anarchy means having sovereignty and knowing right from wrong. You don't need someone to tell you or make it a law, don't steal. You know you would not steal. That's a lack of love. So sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on, but I totally agree with you. And we see that here in Canada, just like you do in the States. And so-and-so's going to save us. So-and-so's going to save us. Even if people are absolutely 100% for Trump, you got to understand that guy's human. He'll probably make some mistakes along the way, And so we always need to default on our own sensibilities and our own knowing what's right from wrong, our own moral standards. But there are a lot of people, nope, they want to eat, drink, and be merry and screw their way to heaven, and they don't care. They don't want to think for themselves. I don't know what to say about them, but, at one point in my life, I was faced with the concept of death, and I thought, oh my God, if I die and there is a heaven and a hell, I want to stand before, St. Peter or whoever, and have a clean conscience that I did my best. And if that God judges me unfit, then screw him, because I done my best, right? Or if there's no God and I'm going to be on my deathbed, how am I going to handle it? Well, if I live my life the best way I know how, I can have peace when it's my time to pass over. And if there's reincarnation, I sure as the hell don't want to come back and do the bullshit again. So that alone is to me a motivator to be the best that I can be, so that I can move on to, I don't know, better whatever that comes after this. So either way, I got my bases covered, Stephen.
I think that's great. No, I know, no worries on rambling. I loved all of it, but I'm with you. And we dealt with that here during 2020 in the States quite a bit. There's just blind trust and faith. The other thing that I'm really starting to think is, I would call somewhat of a mind virus, is there's a lot of people who are now thinking that conformity equals being intellectual. And that's, I know, and it's like, you see this saying go around, and it's like, well, if you're smart and you're intelligent, you'll listen to what the government says. And to me, I'm like, when has conformity ever been intellectual? I was like, most of the intellectuals, even if we're going with, let's say the consensual narrative of history at this point, all of the intellectuals, all of the geniuses, all of the creators throughout all of these years of humanity, they were rebels. They were renegades. They had the spirit, the spark within them to be like, that what they're saying is wrong, or there's something else here that we're not missing. I mean, look at the dark ages of the Catholic Church. So many people threatened being beheaded just for the sake of, like, going against the grain, bringing something new to the table. I mean, what was it? Copernicus, who came up with the heliocentric theory. I mean, according to modern history, he was on the verge of being beheaded. What he said was heretical at that point in time, to think that the sun could potentially revolve around the earth. To all my flat earth friends, I'm not dissing on you by saying that. I'm just using this in context, but it is, I think that is a mind virus of itself. And I think, like you were saying, there's a vast majority of healing on a collective level that needs to take place in order to work out these different energetic parasites that are kind of feeding off of us. And to work out these different mind viruses that are kind of plaguing us collectively at this point. And I think, we're going to get a nudge here soon. That's my opinion. I do think, based on even with your book, I do think we have some kind of interesting disclosure that's upon us. I do think that we are going to get a little bit more of the layer of the veil dissipated, per se. Whether or not the intentions of this disclosure are for the benefit of us or for the benefit of the parasite class, I'm not 100% sure yet. I would never claim to know that. But I do think we're going to be getting a nudge here soon. So, and I hopefully with this nudge, there will come these realizations. There will come the other thing too, that, even about our collective, is we get, and this was my message I've kind of relayed quite a bit, and I can't relay it enough, because I think it's something that we all need to take seriously, and I will be talking about it in my live talk as well. We are stepping into a new way of being, a new way of life. You know what I mean? We cannot step into this new way of being and this new way of life while carrying things from the old way. And, I still see a lot of people who are, in our conscious collective, in our spiritual community, that are still trying to drag a lot of this old way, into this new way of being. And you see the conflict that occurs from that. You see the sabotage that occurs from that. But, nonetheless, I think what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead. Karen, do you have any real quick before we sign off, any tips and tricks or, any kind of cleansing options that people can potentially look at for not just getting rid of the physical aspects of a parasitic infection, but also the energetic aspects of it as well.
I think probably the biggest tip I can give is be prepared for some discomfort. Whether you're taking an herbal preparation to kill off intestinal parasites, whether you're casting off the parasite or worms that are infecting your mind and your thinking in society, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Be prepared for it not to be a smooth ride. Be prepared to feel uncomfortable. And then, of course, I think that's what's really important is to take personal responsibility for your health, for your mind, for your soul, for everything that you do. You can't have perfect control. None of us do. But take responsibility. That means buying out some time where we're thinking about our life, where we're holding a bit of a review of the things that worked well in our life, the things that aren't working so well, how can we make adjustments, and just stay connected to reality, the greater reality. And I think, and realize that a lot of this is egregores. It totally is egregores. And that's coming out more and more. So that would be my tip.
I think that is an amazing tip. I really dig that. So one of the biggest things, I'll give tips and tricks for both real fast. So one of the biggest things you can do to help remove yourself of at least the physical portion of parasites, just eat well and take care of yourself. Number one, eat a whole foods diet, cook most of your food. I know a lot of people, a lot of people will rebuttal with me on the fact that, it's like, oh, I don't have the time. Well, they have a lot of these great, I tell people about HelloFresh. I'm not a spokesperson for them by any means, but HelloFresh is a good, alternative. They send you all the ingredients. You cook the meal yourself. They give you a recipe card. You don't even have to go to the grocery store. If you don't even have time to do that, this box just gets shipped to your house. So, as far as cooking all of your own food and eating a whole foods diet, it's not that difficult. It's not that expensive. You just have to find the ways to do it. I tell people to go to Asian grocery stores and get produce, places like H Mart, because to me, in 100% honesty, I think the quality of produce at a lot of these Asian stores is a lot better than some of the stuff that we see in, our typical commercial brand supermarkets as well. And it's cheaper. You know what I mean? You're going to get higher quality stuff for a lower price. So it's not impossible to eat well, guys. It's not. There's so many different options in this world today. The other thing I would say too, I'm going to give you guys my little cleanse, my abrasive cleanse that I would do. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 10 cloves of garlic. You're going to take a tablespoon of freshly ground cloves. You're going to take a tablespoon of ground up pumpkin seeds. You're going to take a tablespoon of wormwood, and you're going to take a tablespoon of ginger, minced ginger, with just a tiny bit of honey. And what you're going to do is you're going to mix it all together, and you're going to form it into a little paste, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to break this paste up into little dime-sized pieces, and you're going to take the paste like a pill. You're going to kick it back with water. I'm going to say this too, if you do this cleanse, make sure you are not around people for a couple of days. And that is just my recommendation, because when you eat a lot of garlic, it's going to come out of your pores in very interesting ways. And you're not going to just be scaring parasites away at that point. You're going to be scaring everybody else in the vicinity around you. As far as energetic parasites, the number one thing I would say is always be sovereign. All right. Always keep a positive mindset and understand that you are ultimately in control of your destiny. You are not a victim here. You have the ability, you have the power within you to control your reality, to control your emotions, to control your own destiny. And I think really where a lot of these energetic parasites come from is they come from the reliance, the victim mentality. They come from the reliance on outdated systems. They come from the reliance on a control structure. They come from the reliance on the medical industrial complex. They come from this reliance and this victimhood resonating within the human ego itself. So one of the biggest things I would say, guys, too, is do your shadow work. Just like Karen said, it's not pretty. It's not fun. It can be ridiculously intense, but like she said as well, get used to being uncomfortable, guys, because sometimes we have to learn to find comfort in that discomfort in order for us to succeed, evolve into our best and highest purpose. So those would be my tips and tricks, guys. But since we're about to sign off, Karen, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you when this video goes up? I will have your link tree there. But if you want to tell everybody where to get your book or anything else you're working on, now is the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to be here again. Love sharing space with you, Stephen. Love your words of wisdom. Keep up the good work. You're inspiring on so many levels.
Thank you.
So my book is available from Amazon worldwide. It's called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors. I have 2 podcasts. On Wednesday afternoon, I have the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, and I host a talk show interviewing people from all walks of life who have something positive to bring to the table, something positive for humanity. And on Sundays is the Aliens and Angels podcast, where I talk about my book, my real life extraterrestrial contact experiences, and also interview people who've also had contact. And that's about it for me. And yeah, my link tree's got everything in it. Thank you so much again, Stephen. And thank you to all the listeners and the viewers, and whether you're on the replay or what, just I appreciate you all so very, very much. Take care.
Thanks so much, Karen. And guys, the really only thing, where to find me already. You're already here. But guys, again, my Liberty on the Rocks talk is getting closer. It will be March 19th. If you are in the Denver area or even in any of the surrounding areas and you want to come up and you want to hear me talk and you want to meet me face to face, you can find all of the info. It is pinned to the top of all of my social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and X. So you will be able to find all of the location there or all the information and the location for Liberty on the Rocks. And other than that, guys, thank you for joining us for this special episode, the FKN panel, Fight and Smite the Parasites. Hopefully this was informative to you all, kind of gave you a little bit of glimpse on how parasites can be more than just worms inside of your body. They can be mental and energetic. And other than that, guys, thanks for joining us. I will catch you all next Wednesday. Have a great night, everybody, and take care.
For joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available in Amazon bookstores worldwide. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.